Hey, I'm Jordan. I'm a PhD candidate in chemical engineering, and I'm here with my supervisor, Darren. I'm going to answer some questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, what is your favorite thing about being a PhD supervisor?
I really enjoy getting to know new candidates, listening more than speaking, and not making hard decisions about the candidature until I get to know the candidate. And then it's a work in progress all the way through. Okay, why did you choose to do a PhD?
It wasn't an easy choice. There's always a lot of questions about if it's the right choice. It's a big commitment. So 3.5 years, you have to really consider deeply about if you want to commit to that. But I like the idea of diving deep into a project, really investing myself in the nuances about it, and getting a really nice output in the end that you can really be proud of.
So what scholarship have you been awarded and how did you find out about it?
Yeah, so I have the RTP scholarship that the government gives PhD students, and I actually have an additional top-up scholarship as well that has been awarded to me from the Grains Research and Development Council, which is a government body. And I just did some of my own research online. I found this scholarship and I applied. I wrote my own proposal. There were sections about communication plans and community engagement of your research outputs. And so I did that myself and applied, not thinking much about it, and I got this extra scholarship. And the great thing about this is that there's an operational cost element, so I can put some money towards buying equipment for the lab and testing some of my samples, as well as a travel cost as well. So I've had the chance to go over to France and Spain this year and do a small industry placement in France. And so it's been a great opportunity to do some additional work overseas.
And Jordan took the initiative to write that proposal, and it was an extraordinarily good proposal. So it's always good to see students taking initiative.
What made you decide to be my supervisor?
Well, I think that was more your decision.
Yeah.
But when we first met, I was impressed. Look, I think your background in doing dual science and engineering put you in good stead, because scientists do think differently to engineers, and you had both of those disciplines in your background, and you came across as articulate and quite an expansive thinker, and that was a very good fit for the project that you've walked into. It's turning out that way as well.
Yeah.
How is your PhD different from your undergraduate studies?
It's different in some ways and the same in others. There's definitely some of the same challenges and some degree of stress involved in both undergrad and PhD. But the difference with the PhD is that you have more of that freedom to drive your own project and sort of make a name for yourself and sort of create your future and take responsibility for your own future, basically. Whereas undergraduate, you can sort of go through the motions and get the degree. So I think, it's about ownership and responsibility in a PhD. So Darren, what's the best advice you would give to someone who is considering doing a PhD at UQ?
I think, yes, it's a higher degree, and yes, it's another, substantial level of training in your ongoing, lifelong learning. But I think for the type of work that we do in working on new materials, it's also an opportunity to invent, to discover, to engage with stakeholders well outside the university, to be an inventor, to potentially even commercialise and create a future for yourself. So a PhD can be a platform for so much more than just a piece of paper. Why did you choose to do your PhD at UQ?
I did my undergrad at UQ. I've been here in my whole post-secondary schooling, basically. And so I had contacts, I had a network that I went to sort of find a project I could do. And so it made a lot of sense to stay in a place that I was well connected in. And UQ has been great for being connected to different faculties and not just being isolated in one little bubble, but doing that transdisciplinary research and connecting different fields together. So it's been a great opportunity in my PhD.
Yep.
Why are you passionate about your research?
As you know, we approach things a little differently.
Yeah.
And you've been in the team long enough to see that we tend to find an area that catches our attention and that we think could be developed to a point where it makes a difference, where it has impact.
Yeah.
And traditionally in my group, I guess there's been 3 of these themes over the space of 25 years. They tend to run for 10 to 15 years. You're kind of connected to the 3rd one of those.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is that if you hang around in an area and study it and learn it, and you have a group of people with diverse skills. So we have very much the engineering side of things, and then we have very much the basic end of things. And when all of those people work together on a big problem over 10 to 15 years, the likelihood of doing something that benefits people outside the university and having impact goes up, I think, orders of magnitude. And that's what attracts me to my job and working at UQ.
Sounds like it's all about impact. That's what you're passionate
What
about.
makes me happy.
Yeah.
or the potential for impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think your PhD will benefit you, both professionally and personally?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I did a PhD, because I saw that it had the potential to create a body of work for myself, to create a name in the field, as well as develop some extra professional skills that maybe I wouldn't have the chance to do otherwise in a different job. Skills like science communication, writing, research, experimental planning, and also things like stakeholder engagement. I think that's a big part of our research group, is engaging a wide variety of different players on the path to developing products. So I don't think I would have got those opportunities or skills otherwise. So Darren, how has supervising PhD candidates assisted your work as Chief Scientific Officer for the startup company TenasiTech?
So TenasiTech was formed in the mid-noughties, and it was the product of the work of 3 PhD students earlier in my career. And so we founded that company. We're all inventors in that company, and that company was about making little ceramic plate-like nanoparticles and putting them into transparent plastics like perspex and plexiglass and things like that to make those materials more scratch resistant. So that company consumed us as a research group for 15 years. I think there were perhaps 8 or 9 PhD graduates who were connected to that work. Some of those graduates ended up working as postdocs in the group and continuing on their career. And some of those people, 2 of them, still work with me today, many, many years later. How did the PhD students fit into that? Even when the company was very, very, very commercial and doing things outside the university, there was always PhD students working on the fundamental science and the questions that we were bringing back from the factory. So PhD students heavily influenced the trajectory and the success of that company. Did your work in industry at AIBN Spinifex Nanocellulose Downstream pilot facility draw you to postgraduate study?
Yeah, that's a bit of a mouthful. I'll just call it the pilot plant. I spent a couple of months before I started the PhD on the pilot plant, as you know, and it really helped me frame the context of the research On one hand, it was really good knowing the equipment I was using and getting an understanding of that before I started the PhD. And on the other hand, I could step back, being involved, I could step back and look at the challenges of the field in general. So the details of the equipment and the broad context of the field, both of those things really help from working at the power plant.
So this is the last one, Jordan. How did you pitch your PhD topic?
Yeah, it was actually a bit of a challenge because I was having to pitch it not only to you as a materials scientist, but also to plant scientists that we were collaborating with. So I had to talk about both the different aspects of the topic I wanted to pitch. So I think the first step was getting an understanding of both sides and then pitching it in a way that,
both sides could get their head around it.
Yeah, that everyone could sort of get behind
Yeah.
and understand.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a science communication challenge, but I think it's a good way to get a better understanding of the topic yourself.
Yeah. And you did a very good job.
Thank you.